What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, even with a loss on Thursday Night Football to the New England Patriots, somehow find themselves back in the AFC playoff race. Things look good, promising weekend in favor of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but some concerning headlines. We'll dive into them. Some new quarterback options for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward that some experts believe are headed to the black and gold. And one insider says that it's not crazy to think Mike Tomlin might be gone after the season. We'll dive into that. Plus, it's Monday, so where do we stand with the Pittsburgh Steelers? We woke up a little bit of snow this morning. Winter is finally here. It's coming quick. It was a good weekend of good football outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers. How you feeling, my friend?
Feel good. I feel like this team just refuses to die, man. Like, I don't know. They're not even even on a weekend when they are generally idle. When they lose, then they spend a Sunday at home and their position somehow improves. So these Steelers are they're like cockroaches. They won't die. And we're gonna ride with them as long as they stay alive, and they're even more alive than they seemed after that Thursday night loss.
Yeah, I think you should go into Tomlin's press conference today, and you should phrase a question like that. You say, you guys are pretty much like cockroaches. You just don't die. Does that help? You feel good about that that situation? But that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers are. Even when things are getting bad, rock bottom, some would say, I mean, they're getting better. And to be totally honest, you watch the Indianapolis Colts fall and the Houston Texans fall, and C.J. Stroud now in concussion protocol. We don't know what the future holds there. I mean, as crazy as it seems, as you could imagine, it's almost like the Steelers got promising news throughout the weekend, and things look brighter than they did. I mean, definitely on Friday morning, but maybe on Thursday morning as well, when people were thinking, things could be sinking even before the loss to the New England Patriots. Let's start with obviously the biggest news of the weekend. News comes out that both TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are in concussion protocol following the game on Thursday night. Both of them, I mean, Alex Highsmith had the neck injury. He left the game, entered concussion protocol Friday morning. TJ Watt shows up at the facility Friday just to get evaluated, reports his symptoms, placed in concussion protocol. There's some questions there just because he got hit early in the game, took a knee to the face from Ezekiel Elliott, was evaluated twice during the game, never left, and then shows up on Friday with in a concussion protocol. I mean, big question. If these two are out, somehow the Pittsburgh Steelers outside linebacker room has grown enough to, I mean, warrant limited concern compared to years past. But Marcus Golden and Nick Herbig would likely start in place of these guys. How much faith do you have in that, especially at this time of the season? How big of a loss is it for the Pittsburgh Steelers if neither of them can go? And what is your expectation? Do you believe that they'll be back in time to play on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, you really don't know. No idea if they'll be ready for Sunday. I mean, we'll get some insight from Mike Tomlin today when he speaks around noon, and that'll give you some insight. But for right now, it's a little bit of a mystery. I don't feel great about it. Obviously losing two players like that would be less than ideal, but kind of in a vacuum, I'm not really worried about Nick Herbig. That's always flicks up the
You'll get
Nick
them eventually.
Nick Herbig plays defense. Nate Herbig plays offense.
You're like a grandma. That's how I compare to it. My grandma was here this weekend. She kept calling me my brother's name. That's like, you're like that with Nick and Nate.
Exactly. But Nick and Marcus, I think, have been really good in the spots that they have had to come in. I'm pretty confident in their abilities to be at least serviceable if Alex and TJ can't go. But the thing is, there's some opportunity cost when players like that go down and you have to bring in backups. Like, these are two of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. And for a defense whose margin for error feels really slim right now, just given the state of the offense, that's kind of a huge loss in my book. You don't get the same kind of splash plays with a Nick Herbig and a Marcus Golden in there. Even if you get some solid play, it's not exactly what you get with TJ and Alex, and they give you some game-changing plays lots of the time. So losing that is a pretty crushing blow. And just like I said, given where the offense is, you're going to need those types of splash plays, those big-time playmaking things from superstars like TJ and Alex. And if they're not in there, it's a massive loss.
Yeah, I agree. I think we'll know more today, but I'm not positive that either of them will go. I mean, just judging by TJ Watt in general and who he is, I mean, you know, there's a part of me that understands what concussions are. There's also a part of me that understands what concussions are in the NFL, which is different than what a concussion is everywhere else in the entire world. It wouldn't surprise me if TJ's like, yeah, I'm playing on Sunday. Things will be fine. I'll get cleared, blah, blah, blah. You look at the situation, though, and you're right. Like, the Steelers need splash plays. They need turnovers. They need pressure. They need splash in general from their defense. That's the only way that they find wins this season. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith have generated, game-winning splash. They've won games for this team in the past. They're going to need to do so again moving forward. I think that just having that understanding, they're going to work as hard as they possibly can to get out of the protocol. And I know that that's out of their control, but, again, the NFL is different. It is a loss, even if Nick Herbig, even if Marcus Golden, like you said, they're quality guys. They're guys that they could be starters in the NFL for a week or two and everybody would be fine and you wouldn't really notice a major drop-off just overall. But what the Pittsburgh Steelers need from their defense, you're going to notice that drop-off. And that's where things get concerning, just because they have to live and die off of defense. And Mike Tomlin said it before, like, sometimes just getting a turnover in general is not enough for the Steelers offense. You need advantageous turnovers. You need turnovers that put you in position to score. TJ Watt especially has been that guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has found ways in crucial moments to put his offense in the best case scenario to score. To not have that, especially against the Indianapolis Colts, I get they're coming off of a loss, which I guess probably helps. And Gardner Minshew didn't look great on Sunday, which also helps. But you're gonna need that. Like, this is a do or die game. You lose this one, your chance to make the playoffs are pretty much out the door. You win it, you're still in this thing, and you take a significant gap this late in the season over a team who is fighting right behind you. This is as big as it gets. You do need both of them out there. And then you have the part after that, which is those are the only two guys. You could call up Kyron Johnson for another game. That's his third, but he hasn't played a defensive snap all season long. He's only played 2 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a former 6th-round pick a year ago. Like, this guy isn't somebody who's coming out of the field and you're expecting big, bad things. Like, that's a significant drop-off once he's on the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers on defense. I am worried. I think it's as bad as it gets when it comes injury-wise. Like, this is the worst possible situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers to deal with. That being said, again, we'll see what happens today and moving forward. We'll have more news. Wednesday, I feel like, will be because they'll be able to practice Tuesday. So that means that Wednesday we'll have like a pretty good idea of whether or not they're going to play. And having the weekend, I think, helps. I think being able to report your symptoms on Friday, enter protocol, have the weekend to do nothing, have Monday to do nothing and come back in and kind of get tested again. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you'll practice. Friday, you'll get another day off, and that's where you'll try to get cleared from an independent neurologist. I think definitely works in their favor. But again, something to monitor, because significant loss for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward. Cold turkey may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some weird mind voodoo from your crazy neighbor, like shouting up to the stars and yelling, "Help!" We're talking about our sponsor, Fume, and they look at the problem in a different way. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong. So instead of drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-winning flavored air device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all-natural, delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. That's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. It fills the void in a natural, guilt-free way. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing while breaking your habit. I got this thing, and the first thing I noticed was how sharp it looks. This is probably the sharpest looking device I own. And then immediately I start fidgeting with it and realize how awesome that aspect of it is. And then when it comes to the taste, I mean, you can't beat the cool, crisp mint flavor. It's easily my favorite, and I haven't put this thing down since I discovered it. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup with destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com/allsteelerstalk or scan the QR code and use code allsteelerstalk to get 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. The Fume Solano launched last November, and you can upgrade your Journey Pack to the Solano to enjoy the premium walnut barrel and onyx black coated mouthpiece that has a smoother finish and still get 10% off. That's tryfum.com and use our code AllSteelersTalk to save an additional 10% off your order today. Let's jump to next topic of conversation here. Jaden Daniels, Justin Fields, those are the big names surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend. Emory Hunt of CBS Sports named both of them as potential landing spots or as Pittsburgh Steelers' potential next quarterback, along with a few other names, but those were his top guesses. Those were his, if I had to make a prediction of who the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to take or make a move for this offseason to land a quarterback, it's going to be Daniels or it's going to be Fields. Let's start with the Heisman Trophy winner. Jaden Daniels goes into the weekend. First off, were you surprised that Daniels won the Heisman? Because your boy Michael Penix was right there, and I thought he was going to pull it off. I thought it was his.
I had hoped it was his, but I mean, you look at Daniel's stats. Like I think he threw for 4,000 yards and rushed for another 1,000. He had like 50 something touchdowns to like 4 interceptions. Like I think the stats are pretty undeniable. And even though I love my dude Michael Penix, I think they got I think they got it right. I think they chose the right guy.
Yeah. And now he could be headed to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kirk Herbstreit, excuse me, I'm having a tough time with words. Kirk Herbstreit said, I don't know, a couple weeks back that Daniels is going to be the steal of the first round. Now people are saying maybe that steal goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're the college football guy. You've watched college football all season. You're into college football probably pretty much are pretty hefty more than I am. You look at Jaden Daniels. This is a dude who's NFL ready, who could play in the NFL. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you taking a shot on this guy and feeling confident in that selection in the first round?
Yeah, I think he can absolutely play in the NFL. I think he's got the arm. He's got the athleticism. He's probably got to put a few more pounds on if he's going to run the way that he did in college. And like if you watched an LSU game, like some of the hits that he took were unbelievable. That guy had no regard for his own safety at all.
That's good.
But if he's going to be that small, he's going to have to either play a little bit differently or, put on some weight if he's going to run like that. But he's got all the physical tools. He's done it, at the highest level of college ball and done it at, with incredible production as well. As far as his like fit with the Steelers, I mean, I think as far as like pure talent and, athleticism and everything like that, he's probably an upgrade over what Kenny was as a prospect. It seems like a little bit of a dicey proposition picking him in the first round. I haven't seen many people call him a first rounder yet. I think everything leading up to at least the Heisman ceremony was certainly not first round, maybe second at the highest. So I think that just using that kind of draft capital on a guy like Daniels seems a little iffy to me for the Steelers, just because I feel like they also have a ton of issues that are kind of more glaring, like they need linebackers, they probably need another corner, they need some offensive linemen. Like there are, I feel like, bigger needs for this team right now than a quarterback, but I don't know. It seems like the type of thing where you could pick them. It's boom or bust, like it's big time. Yeah. This is either going to be the greatest move that this franchise has ever made, or it's going to really go down in flames and you're going to end up having wasted a first round pick on a guy who doesn't end up playing for you or just get shoved down the depth chart, doesn't work out. I mean, that's my biggest concern, is just that there's a wide range of outcomes, and I feel like it's going to fall on an extreme end of the spectrum. So it's really just doesn't feel like a sure thing, which worries me.
Where would you put Kenny Pickett in this year's draft? What round? You going deep?
Yeah, I mean, look, like Kenny was definitely good enough to be a first rounder. I felt like the year he was drafted, but it was a pretty weak quarterback comparatively. And this year it's really, really deep with quarterbacks. I feel like just up and down. So he's definitely getting pushed out of the first round. I feel like this year.
Yeah.
And it's a little hard to see, because like Michael Penix is a second rounder at best this year, I think, is what I've generally kind of seen. So I don't know. You just put that as the benchmark, and it's hard to imagine Kenny going before the third round in a year like this.
Would you put him before Daniels?
No, I don't think so.
So you're like, it's and like that's okay, because I think I agree. Like Kenny was in a good draft, a third, fourth round pick, which is, I mean, you got potential there, but not. I mean, you're not a first round pick in a good NFL quarterback draft, and I think that's good. But I also, you said it yourself. The Steelers have so many other needs, where I think that this year's draft, in a situation like that with Daniels or even Penix or whoever, it's a good place to be, where you don't have to put all this pressure to draft somebody in the first round. You could take, an offensive tackle or a center or another corner or whatever, and kind of bulk a different part of your team, improve them, and then surround your quarterback with more talent, while also getting a quarterback maybe deeper in the draft that doesn't necessarily have to have the pressure to come in here and start, because you do have Kenny Pickett, who's a first round pick, but might have more talent and more upside and a higher ceiling than what Kenny Pickett has right now. I mean, are you putting Daniels, like what round? Where are you putting, if you were looking at Daniels, if you were an evaluator, like if you had the draft board in front of you, you didn't have to worry about where quarterbacks are going, what round are you feeling comfortable taking a guy like Daniels in?
The second, like when I say he's not a first rounder, like I feel like he's not far off of there. The third would be definitely a steal. I don't like, there are just a lot of quarterbacks I feel like that are a little bit more pro ready than Daniels. Like he's got some nice tools, but I feel like as someone who hasn't, broken down his LSU tape extensively, like I still think he's got, ways to go as a decision maker. And like I said, he's got to put on some weight too. So yeah, this second rounder like feels about right. I mean, like if he's there at, I forget which pick the Steelers would have right now,
like the 22nd, 23rd, something like that.
Yeah, but in the second round, like, because if he's there at that second pick in the second round, like, I'd be very tempted to pull the trigger. Like
make a move,
right? Because you already kind of cement one of your biggest needs in the first round. You can take care of that business, whatever it is, whatever it ends up being that you want, probably an offensive lineman. But then you can kind of take a risk on a luxury pick like Daniels, or maybe even like trade some of these picks, like a Massa, pull together another second round pick just to give you some insurance. But yeah, I mean, that's a range that I would feel absolutely comfortable taking a little bit of a shot on a guy like Daniels with.
So the other option there is Justin Fields, who has had, definitely a very up and down career in the NFL, has struggled, has never found much success actually winning games. But I think the thing with him is he's just loaded with talent. There's so much talent in who Justin Fields is. He just hasn't been able to put it together. And every group chat I'm in, when it comes to just like buddies and other writers and whoever, is just the general consensus is, well, the Chicago Bears are pretty bad. And maybe that's the reason that Justin Fields has also found himself being bad in moments. If he's on the trading block, which very much well could be the case. Like, maybe I'm wrong here, but if I'm the Chicago Bears, even if Justin Fields is the dude, he's got 1 year left on his rookie deal. You have an opportunity to draft a guy like Caleb Williams or a guy like Drake May or whoever with that first pick in the draft. Plus you have another pick in the first round to use on like a real first round draft pick. If that's the case, I don't think I'm holding on to the guy that only has 1 year left on his rookie deal. I think I'm looking at the situation and saying I could do a lot more with a less expensive quarterback over the next 5 years than having to worry about re-sign Justin Fields. If he's on the trading block, if this is where he is for the Pittsburgh Steelers, are you making a move? Are you comfortable if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers making a move? What's the price range you're going for here? Because I have a number in mind. I have a pick in mind that I'm giving up if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers that I think is pretty realistic. I want to see if you match that pick.
Yeah, I'm a big Justin Fields guy. And I think
same. I want to say same.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit it spot on. Like in a much better system, I feel like we have a much different opinion of Justin Fields.
With it being said, the Pittsburgh Steelers right now are not a much better situation. Much more talent, equally as bad coaching.
Yeah, sure. But I still think like
overall, organizationally, yes, they're not cursed. I will say that.
Well, yeah, but I think the better talent thing is pretty significant.
Yes.
I really don't want to say that I'd give up a first round pick to get Justin Fields, but I feel like that's what it would take. You know, it would take a first round pick and probably more. And I'm pretty willing to say that I would give up a first round pick and a little bit of filler for Justin Fields. I just think he has that much potential, and I feel like I don't know. He just shows you flashes that I'm like, if he can get put in an offense that has any idea what it's doing, any idea how to use the talent that it has, this is a guy that we could be talking about as a Pro Bowler, as an All-Pro guy. Like,
I agree.
I just see that type of talent there, and you give him a defense to work with as well, and you're in great shape too. I mean, I think the only hiccup is you're forced to make a quick decision on whether or not to extend him with 1 year left on his deal. So if you get him this offseason, it's a little tenuous. Like, he could have one good year, but you never really know. Like, just how
could you pick up his 5th-year option this year? If you get him in the offseason, you could still, as long as you do it before the deadline, right?
I forget what year he was drafted in. I don't.
If he's got 1 year left in his heading in, because Najee would be the same way. They have to pick up his option before, so you might have to, but that's still, that second year is expensive. That's not a
right. And I would that would the only thing I would get hung up on is just having to make a real quick decision about your future. I mean, I guess if it's a 1 year deal, you don't have to, or if it's a 1 year extension, you don't really have to attach yourself to this guy forever, but it's still just money that you wouldn't want to pay for a guy who, I mean, like, just like you bring him in this offseason, he has a great 2024. And then, like, even then, do you trust that as kind of, okay, well, we can rock with this guy for years to come? Like, I don't know. That seems a little bit of a dubious proposition, just not totally guaranteed.
Yeah, I agree. I think you look at him as a risk, obviously. Like, nothing's guaranteed here. And the turnaround time does worry me. That's why my number was lower. It was actually, and like, maybe I'm not realistic enough with this one, but I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers could give up a second, or like would be willing to give up a second and more, like some fillers, maybe a future second, or I mean, maybe a player. Maybe you're sending Najee Harris. Maybe you're sending Deontay Johnson. Who knows? You know, I don't know if the Chicago Bears are necessarily like all on board to be like, let's take another wide receiver from the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think a second round pick is like where I think it depends on who's calling, which is obviously significant. But I don't know how many teams are going to be in the running for Justin Fields. Like, maybe there's a couple, but I think overall, like, it's going to be a team that is in contention for the playoffs, who doesn't have a young quarterback who's already succeeding. And I think a lot of those teams are kind of already filled. Like, maybe the Seattle Seahawks are a team to watch because Geno Smith is a question mark, but they already paid Geno Smith. So you're going to pay 2 quarterbacks. Like, that's also, you have no idea what's going on there. There aren't really like a ton of other teams that you're sitting around. Maybe the Detroit Lions are a team to watch, but Chicago's not trading within the division. That's never going to happen. I think that it's limited. Like, the teams that are actually in the running for this guy who could make a move, which could help the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, you think there's any shot a second round pick and maybe some more gets it done, or you think I'm way out in left field here?
No, I mean, I think you make a good point. Like, a second round pick in Deontay Johnson, like, that'd be a pretty good, like, security blanket for whatever quarterback they end up drafting with that first pick.
Yeah.
Like, I don't hate that at all. I think that could work. I just feel like the asking price is going to start at a first round pick, you know? Like,
yeah.
They drafted They drafted Fields, what,
I think it was like
top 15,
18th or something.
I know it's top 15.
14th maybe.
Yeah. So I don't think they're going to want to kind of level down in that sense. I think you're going to have to, if it's a second round pick, you're going to have to give them kind of a, I hesitate to use this word, but like a first round talent, in terms of player,
Yes.
like a guy you could kind of reasonably line up with a first round pick. So I feel like Deontay is a player that falls, like maybe Najee falls into that category as well. Like I think Pat Freiermuth might as well. Like that could maybe work.
Pat might.
So like I think the Steelers would have options, and like losing those guys, like any one of those guys would be, significant. It's not ideal, but I feel like those are losses that you could maybe live with if you feel like you're getting a quarterback that you can really believe in.
So where are you going with this? Say it's a second round pick in Deontay Johnson. Say that's as good as it gets. Omar Khan works a little bit of magic. That's what he's able to pull off. Second round pick in Deontay Johnson for Justin Fields or Jaden Daniels, maybe end of the second round without giving up anything. What direction you going?
That's a good question. I'm kind of tempted to say Fields, quite honestly.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Fields. I'm a Fields guy. I'm going to stick with him. Yeah.
I like Fields. I think I'm going Fields as well. Daniels, I think, is less of a question mark, more NFL experience. My thing with Fields is there's no competition. Like you're not coming in here and competing with Kenny Pickett to see if you're the best, if you're the better quarterback. You're starting day one. Kenny Pickett's your backup. It's unfortunate for Kenny Pickett, but the Pittsburgh Steelers, like Justin Fields is a guy that you said Pro Bowler. I really truly think that people who like dissect NFL film watch this guy and say if he was on a really good team, like they might be a contender. Like they might be able to bring him somewhere. And the Steelers have way more that they need outside of a quarterback to make things, actually happen. But you're not shooting for, in 2 years, Jaden Daniels is good enough to lead this team to a Super Bowl. You're shooting for in 2024, we got to win a damn Super Bowl because TJ Watt's running out of time. Cam Hayward's on the last leg of his career. Minkah Fitzpatrick's running out. Like, are we going to waste the prime? I think if you get him. And then that's the thing is like in 2 years, especially if you get rid of Deontay Johnson, by the time Justin Fields' contract is up, you got options to like just pay your quarterback and then have a bunch of other guys that aren't taking up all of your cap space. You go win a Super Bowl, Cam Hayward's walking out in glory. You don't got to worry about his massive contract anymore. And I know that that's a significant loss, but hopefully you did enough with Keanu Benton at that point to kind of replace him. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think I'm going Justin Fields as well. You going Justin Fields or Michael Penix?
Ooh. Yeah, Justin Fields.
I am too. I think at that point you just got it. And I think Justin Fields is young. Like I have his age here. He's only 24. He'll be 25 by the start of next season. Like, I mean, Kenny Pickett's 25 now. So
right.
Same age. You got a young quarterback that you could do a lot with George Pickens, with Pat Freiermuth, Calvin Austin's still Calvin Austin, but I mean, you could go into the draft. It's a deep wide receiver class too. You could go get some wide receivers in this year's draft. You could have a very young offense and be just fine. Like, I think that's a good move. We'll see what happens with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but very interesting names to watch as they head into the offseason. All right, next thing I want to talk about here. Ray Fittipaldo, insider for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, said over the weekend during an appearance on 93.7 The Fan that there's a 50-50 shot that the Pittsburgh Steelers move on from Mike Tomlin this season. Made the assumption that it is the last year of his deal next year. I thought it was 2 years from now, but it's next year, which he says if you're going to look at this one of two ways, you're either going to extend him this offseason or let him go. He says, quote, 50% chance. But I mean, here, let's go through this because I was thinking about this morning. We'll know pretty soon after the season ends what direction Art Rooney II is going to go here, because if he does nothing and he brings him back for another year, you have to extend him. There's no reason to bring him back in 2024 as a lame duck head coach. You're going to be able to go out and get a good offensive coordinator when the head coach is on a 1-year deal, basically. pretty much saying you're not going to be able to do that. So they're either going to extend him or they're going to move on. I think Art Rooney is at a crossroads here. I mean, 50-50 shot, 50% chance the Pittsburgh Steelers move on this offseason. Did you hear that? Your thoughts? You believe it? You think, do you believe it? That's cut and dry.
Well, I mean, 50-50 was a higher chance than of him getting fired than I would have put it at, even going into this weekend and even after that Patriots loss. But it makes sense. I mean, look, if you're not going to extend him, I think Ray makes a good point. Like, why keep him around? It's just not worth it at that point if you don't really believe in him enough to give him a contract extension and see him as the guy moving forward. Then doesn't really make sense to keep him around for much longer. Don't kind of waste your time. Don't drag your feet. Just get right into the nitty gritty of it and go find your new coach. Go find someone that you actually believe in and let him start building what you want him to build, what he thinks he can build with this team as soon as possible. Get it going right away. Let him build relationships with, like we just talked about. This is a pretty young team still in a lot of ways. Yeah. So let him build those relationships, let him get those connections, and don't waste time on someone that you don't believe in. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, whether or not you decide, if you're Art Rooney, whether or not you decide to fire Mike Tomlin or keep him, I'd say make that decision sooner rather than later. Don't kind of drag your feet. Don't let Tomlin be a lame duck, like Ray said.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with the circumstance, like where they sit, as in it's a 1-year deal. You got decisions to make. You're either going to bring in a new offensive coordinator and a new head coach at the same time, or you're going to get somebody that Tomlin likes and that fits with Tomlin. I think that's where I stand here, is that's where the decision gets made. If Mike Tomlin's sitting around and the list of candidates that he brings to you at the end of the season is just awful, and you'll know, like nobody walked in the office with Matt Canada and people were like, oh my God, look at that guy. Nobody was that excited about that situation. If Mike Tomlin does the same thing where he brings in a bunch of a list of names of guys that are just unproven in this league in every facet, there's a difference between the Philadelphia Eagles running game coordinator or the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback coach, or anybody from the San Francisco 49ers coaching staff, and some random dude off the streets like Matt Canada was, or if that's the situation, or if it's some guy that he worked with way back in the day in some coaching, some college coaching experience that he had. If that's the list of candidates you're getting, then I'm having the conversation with Mike of, hey, look it. I just don't think that the direction we're trying to head is the same direction you're trying to head. At that point, I think this is a divorce. This is time to move on and find different grounds, and you take that list of candidates with you and you have a good time somewhere else. If he comes in here and he just says, look it, let's game plan this together. Let's find the best offensive coordinator we could possibly get. I think at that point, I'm like, okay, look it. Maybe Mike Tomlin isn't the guy, but maybe this new offensive coordinator brings us something that we really enjoy and that has some serious upside. Because I think that's it. I think if Mike Tomlin could just be Mike Tomlin and just motivate his guys and get everybody on the same page and whatever, and you just take everything else out of his hands, he's still a great head coach, but you got to be able to take everything out of his hands, and he doesn't put the coaches around him that allow him to do that or allow that to happen. And I think Art Rooney, that's where the crossroads is. It's not like, oh, Mike Tomlin's a bad coach. Is Mike going to actually do something this offseason to improve this team? If he is, okay, cool. Let's keep it going. There's no reason to give up on him. If he's not, and the signs are there that nothing's going to change, I think it is time to move on. But I agree with you. 50% is higher than what I would have put it, but his explanation of it, does make a decent bit of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you make a good point about is this going to stay kind of the same stale product that we've kind of seen, how willing
for a long time.
Yeah. How willing is Mike Tomlin to change, to adapt, to maybe rethink what he's doing in the face of some results that aren't exactly living up to the standard. And I think that will kind of inform whether or not, because when I said, don't drag your feet with this, that kind of includes Tomlin. Unless Tomlin's kind of willing to change with you and move forward with you, then he's not your guy. If he wants to stick to his guns and believe that those are winning ways, that's fine. But I mean, clearly those winning ways, or those beliefs that he has, those philosophies, aren't getting results here in Pittsburgh right now. So you got to be able to tell him. You got to have kind of the confidence and the just confidence and self assuredness to say, okay, well then you're just not right for us right now, and we can live with you going somewhere else, even if you have some success there, because what's going on right here, right now, isn't working.
You think the Chicago Bears are taking Mike Tomlin and that's it straight up for Justin Fields?
That's interesting. That is interesting. I don't know, but I'd
straight up.
They'd have to think.
What do you think
it.
Mike Tomlin's worth? It's got to be a first round pick, right? Like, you're not giving up Mike Tomlin for anything less than a first round pick. And even if Pittsburgh Steelers fans have seen the worst of Mike Tomlin, the Chicago Bears look at Mike Tomlin as a god, like, and any team who has struggled for the last 10 years look at Mike Tomlin and go, it'd be really nice to have some winning records around here. That'd be
right.
That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's really funny, kind of the difference between like the national impression, like the impression outside of Pittsburgh of Mike Tomlin versus the one inside. Like, not saying any one is more right than the other, but like, it's just funny to see how completely detached those two impressions of him are.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you called the Chicago Bears tomorrow and said, hey, at the end of the season, we'll give you Mike Tomlin. Even if they lost every game from here on out, the Steelers could go winless and finish with Mike Tomlin's first losing record. You call him the day after the season and go, hey, we'll give you Mike Tomlin for Justin Fields straight up. I don't even think they'd say yes. The papers would be faxed to the NFL before they were even able to agree on a deal. That's how quickly I think Mike Tomlin could get dealt in the NFL, which brings up a bunch of questions, but we'll talk about that later. Over the weekend, last thing I want to talk about, over the weekend, Pittsburgh Steelers found themselves in 8th place in the AFC, begging for a shot to get back in there. Everything looked dark. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. This season was over. By the end of Sunday, they climbed themselves back into 6th place. They watched the Indianapolis Colts fall. They watched the Houston Texans fall and potentially lose their quarterback short term. They currently sit 6th. We didn't answer this question on Friday because this is a Monday question. I knew that the weekend was going to bring a different mindset, let things calm down. Now that everything has settled, the dust has settled, they enter a pivotal week against the Indianapolis Colts. Where do you stand with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I don't really think I stand anywhere different. I mean, I feel the same way that I did after the Patriots game. I mean, even though they've moved up into playoff position, I don't see them winning games down the stretch. I mean, I think they win maybe one more at the most. I'm just not optimistic about what they're going to be able to do. I mean, Seattle, been up and down, but I still think is kind of maybe not the more talented team, but they're playing better football right now. I mean, the Bengals have kind of found their footing with Jake Browning, and then the Ravens are the Ravens, and the only really great chance that I feel like they have for a win is Indianapolis this weekend, and even that is iffy. That's a team that's like really been able to figure some things out despite a bunch of injuries and losing some guys. Like, I just don't really see how the Steelers stack enough wins down the stretch to put themselves in a playoff position. It just doesn't. I don't know. Maybe they do. I certainly think they have the talent to and the potential to, but it just doesn't seem likely right now at all. So I'm not optimistic on their playoff chances. I think they're going to kind of honestly fall well short, and not just sort of short like they did last year. It's going to be by a little bit of a more significant margin. I just see them kind of limping to the finish, quite honestly, because they haven't really given me any reason to think otherwise.
Yep, I agree. You look at the playoff picture. The Indianapolis Colts don't worry me. I just don't think that they're a threat right now. I think they're like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They found ways to win. Good for them. The end of the season is about who's hot right now, who's winning right now, who has put it together. That's the difference. It doesn't matter how you start. It matters how you finish. The Pittsburgh Steelers started terribly. They're going to finish possibly worse somehow. And that's just the position that they've put themselves in. They haven't, just like you said, they haven't done anything all season long to change the narrative of, I'm worried that this team can't beat good teams. They did nothing. If anything, they've fallen backwards, and now I'm less confident that they could pull off wins against teams like the Cincinnati Bengals or the Seahawks or the Ravens or even the Colts. But again, the Colts don't worry me. It's the Denver Broncos, the Buffalo Bills, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Those are the three teams that are hottest in the NFL, are in the AFC right now, that are marching their way into playoff spots. And they have two teams in front of them, because I think the Browns are also good right now. The Indianapolis Colts and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are very beatable. And down the stretch, those teams that are hot right now, those teams that are going to win, those teams that are going to fight their way into, they'll go 4-0 in this last stretch because that's what they need to do. The Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to hold up and be able to outwin those guys in these games. If they won those two games, if they beat the Arizona Cardinals and they beat the New England Patriots, they set themselves up to go into the next 4 stretch and just win 2 games. Like, that's all you got to do is win. It doesn't matter how you do it. But even then, like, your stance on them is like, okay, cool, they get in and then they get smoked somewhere. It's not going to happen. Right now, I stand there and say it would surprise me more if they won 2 games in this last 4 than it would if they lost all 4 of them. That's where I currently stand with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that the Denver Broncos, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Buffalo Bills are just too hot. They got too much talent, and they're just too motivated right now. And that's the big, like, the Steelers just don't look like they care. They look like the season's over. They look like they won 7 games, and that's great, but the season hasn't gone as they hoped. And, it kind of feels like a lot of them realized that the Super Bowl isn't a real possibility and that they've already packed it in and they're waiting for next year. That's where I stand. Don't think it's possible. I think that the end of the season is going to get worse before it gets better. But there'll be plenty of conversations that come with that, especially around the head coach, especially around the quarterback and the offensive coordinator and pretty much every other position for this team. But if I had to guess, I've already texted my dad. Me and my dad were joking yesterday. He's a big Denver Broncos fan. And he called me, busting me, and he goes, so we're going to go to Denver when they sneak their way into the playoffs here and Pittsburgh's on the outside? And I'm like, yeah, probably. That's just that's where they sit currently. The NFL in these last 4 stretches, they set themselves up terribly. I don't think they pull off a win. Stinks. We've come a long way. We've drowned pretty heavily in 2.5 weeks.
Right.
I would love to pull that up and just be like, they could do it, man. This is the difference.
I mean, going back 3 months to when we first did this where we stand thing, or even where we stood going into week 1. I think we did one before that, and man, we were pretty wrong. We were pretty wrong. Even if these guys make the playoffs, we were pretty wrong.
Yeah. But it's where they stand. They did it to themselves, and nothing we could do about it. We just sit here and talk about it. With that said, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at allsteelers.com and our pit coverage at InsideThePanthers.com. It might be snowy. The Steelers might be losing, but it's a new week in the Berg, so let's try to enjoy it. With that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.